There's a certain time of day and a certain time of year when the sun sets and the weather cools, where the leaves change and the winds chill. Light retreats, darkness advances, and imagination takes over. It all occurs during that brief period of time known as the Twilight-Tober Zone.
Guten Tag, mein Name ist Karl Kopenhagen. Ich bin ein Kameramann und das hier ist meine Kamera. Kame.
The former workplace of Mr. Robert R. Walker, one of the internet's most noted critics. Long ago, Mr. Walker created something that he misses desperately. The years since have only fed that desperation, and recently, he's longed for a chance to create again. But he can't do it alone. A writer can be the master of their own universe, but this writer isn't dealing with any known constellation, for both he and you are about to explore the unknown cosmos of the Twilight-Tober Zone. A World of His Own features a perfect concept for the Twilight Zone. Written by Richard Matheson and directed by Ralph Nelson, this was the finale of Season 1, both in production and airing order. It capped off an extremely successful debut set of episodes on CBS and assured the show would be back with more soon after, to appease its growing creative fanbase. Gregory West is a well-known playwright who's sharing a romantic drink with a young woman named Mary. Soon enough, Gregory's wife, Victoria, arrives home to catch a glimpse of her unfaithful husband through a window. However, when she enters the room, there's no trace of Mary. Slowly, Gregory tells his wife that he has the ability to speak his characters into existence through his dictation machine. Mary was just that, one of his characters. When he destroys the piece of tape any of those characters are recorded on, they disappear, or, as he put it,
uncreated.
Victoria thinks he's lying and threatens to have him committed, followed by a divorce. Gregory, though, is determined to prove to his wife that he's telling the truth, and the whole situation ends up being much more than Victoria West bargained for. This was the only episode that Ralph Nelson directed, but it was the third that Richard Matheson wrote for this first season. Keep in mind, Rod Serling adapted 2 short stories of his earlier on as well. Matheson was pleased with the cast and direction, having been on set to watch the filming, and enjoyed the end result. But originally, he had pitched this to Serling and producer Buck Houghton as a much more serious episode than the final comedically toned product ended up being. A short story of Matheson's, And Now I'm Waiting, was the basis for A World of His Own, and it had what was described as a more nightmarish quality involving the character and his creations. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a Twilight Zone classic waiting to happen. For whatever reason, it was suggested that he reform the idea as a domestic comedy, and while I certainly don't think it feels comedic the entire time, it works just fine as is. I do wonder what a truer adaptation of And Now I'm Waiting would have looked like as the final episode of Season 1, but oh well. The original short story was later published in a 1983 edition of Twilight Zone magazine. The cast here was only made up of 3 people. Well, technically 4, but we'll get to that. Mary LaRoche played Gregory's creation, Mary, and she would pop up in one more episode down the road in Season 5. Phyllis Kirk was cast well as the snobby wife of Victoria, incredulous to her husband's ridiculous-sounding story. Gregory himself was played by Keenan Wynn, the son of legendary comedic actor Ed Wynn, who made 2 memorable appearances in the Twilight Zone himself. Those were in Season 1's One for the Angels and Season 5's 90 Years Without Slumbering. There was something very strange about Keenan's performance, and I couldn't put my finger on it until I looked him up after this last rewatch. It makes perfect sense that he's Ed Wynn's kid. He has some strange, creepy delivery at times, combined with one scene of very believable pantomime. Of course he's the son of a vaudeville star. It totally makes sense now, and I look at this episode a little differently as a result.
You are stark, staring, raving mad.
You shouldn't say those kind of things, Victoria. Then you stay,
There's a point where Gregory brings an elephant to life inside their house to prove he's telling the truth, and the production team got an actual elephant on set for the bit. It's impressive even today to see this unexpected moment. Originally, they were thinking of ways to get around it, including rear projection, but Buck Houghton didn't think it'd look realistic enough, so they went out and got a real elephant. The visual of the animal in the hallway made for an extraordinary sequence. While Victoria eventually buys into Gregory's story, she tells him that the first chance she can escape, she'll have him put away. West feels he has no choice and brings out a safe with an envelope inside. Victoria's name is written across the front as a stretch of tape is shown to her. Gregory says that Victoria is also a creation of his. Thinking he's bluffing, she throws the envelope and tape into the fireplace herself. As it burns away, Victoria starts to feel strange, and soon enough, she disappears. Gregory runs back to his dictation machine to recreate her, but thinks better of it, and instead brings back Mary one last time. Except now, she's written as his wife, and the new pair begin to live a seemingly happier life. Usually, that'd be the end, but we then see Rod Serling himself on set for the closing narration.
We want you to realize that it was, of course, purely fictional.
Rod! I mean, you shouldn't say such things as nonsense and ridiculous.
Well, that's the way it goes.
This had never happened. Serling was always on screen at the end of each episode to preview the next week's story, but he was never actually in an episode before. The addition of Gregory interacting with him was a really nice touch from Matheson as this wrapped up season 1. The only thing that would have been funnier is if he didn't have a voiceover narration following this. Either there should have been none, or the Gregory character or someone random could have done it. Starting at the beginning of season 2, Rod appeared in the flesh at the beginning of every episode. I like this story. It's not Matheson's best, especially following how great A World of Difference was, but the premise, Keenan Wynn's odd performance, the live elephant, and the ending bit carry this one to memorable status. They finished shooting and thus ended production of season 1 in April of 1960, but it wouldn't be long before everyone was treated to more of these twisted tales.
His name is Carl Copenhagen. He's 5'10", with a proud German forehead and eyes as gray as the North Sea. He has the steady temperament of a honey badger and the grace, dignity, and leadership skills of a walrus in heat. He's dressed in a thick black overcoat, sprayed with the scent of sea salt. He wears a tattered captain's hat and sports round, intimidating spectacles. He's walking down the hallway and toward the first door he sees when... Carl! So, you've brought me back, yeah? I've missed you, old friend. Oh, I've missed you too. Wer was er? It has been eons since you wiped me from this mortal plane. Let me show you how we say thank you in Deutschland.
A creation turning on its creator. It happens more often than you'd think. Years ago, Mr. Walker had the power to create anyone he could imagine. Characters so real to him, they felt human. But he didn't take into account the all-too-human emotion of revenge. In this case, with great power came great agony. Another tale to be filed under P for paradoxical in the Twilight-Tober zone.